There we go.
Hello, everybody.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the aptly titled Friday Night with UVZ and Friends.
And it's hello from me, and it's hello from him.
Yeah, so I've had to look high and low to find a few friends, and I finally managed to get a couple together. And here we are. So in the panel tonight, we've got Peter Phelps from Straight Cuts Motorcycles. We've got Mr. Jeff Rutland and our own in-house celebrity, Mr. Dick Whistles.
I don't know what that means.
So, myself, Dick Whistles, and Straight Cut Motorcycles, or Peter, we're all on YouTube. So we are simulcasting tonight to a couple of channels. So to everyone watching out there, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And tonight we're talking about our favorite motorcycles.
Wow.
No doubt.
It's a long list.
No doubt everyone has been stuck at home, and everyone is dreaming about motorcycles or getting out on the bikes as much as the next one. So we thought we'd put something together to give a little bit of content that's non-virus related, and just give a bit of entertainment. So if you guys have got any questions out there, please put the questions up, and we'll try and answer them as we go. And just by way of introduction, in case anybody hasn't met the guys before, Mr. Dick Whistles, tell us a little bit about how long you've been riding and what sort of trips you like.
I rode a motorcycle out of my mother's womb. No, I've been riding. Oh wow, about 20 years now. Doesn't seem that long, but about 20 years. First bike we got, my wife bought it for me secretly after we had our first baby. And it was, I wasn't one of those guys who had an uncle who rode or a farm to ride on or anything. So it was very much young adulthood. And we pulled into a lot, and I was looking at bikes thinking, oh, I'll never own a bike. And then she handed me the baby to change the baby's diaper out at the car.
Yeah.
And when I brought the baby back into the dealership, she handed me a key to a new motorcycle. So so about 20 years. And
what was that bike? What was the first bike?
It was a Yamaha V-Star 650 Classic. So it's kind of like a Japanese clone of a Fat Boy. Of a Harley Fat Boy. Yamaha, it's one of the bikes on the list that I gave Sean, but the Yamaha had a good run of outdoing Harley with cruisers in America, but not branding them as Yamahas because no one wanted to buy Japanese bikes in North America. So it was a good. I mean, it was a big, low, fat, slung cruiser, kind of a weird first bike, but it was. We still have it. So it still is a good bike, but it was a good bike to learn on.
My first bike was a Pooch Maxi moped.
I was jealous of you guys. Oh, I had friends who were on the mopeds, and I wasn't allowed to have one.
They were hilarious. This was 44 years ago. I had this thing, and they were a single speed bike, just simply twist and go.
Yeah,
and
had the pedals though.
Yeah, it had pedals as well.
Yeah,
so if you ran out of pedal, you could actually cycle it.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant fun. But a true story. This is one of my very first girlfriends had one, and at 28 miles an hour, it would hit a certain rev range, which caused a resonance to go up and through the saddle, which made the saddle vibrate. Yeah. And she was riding along, this funny feeling overcame her, and she went all lightheaded and crashed into a ditch. And it was her first orgasm. Only at 28 miles an hour, but she got into got the hang of riding this thing, and this bike did thousands of miles. She went everywhere on this, and she always arrived smiling.
Yeah,
So,
at 4,400 RPM.
No, 2,000. Yeah, well, basically, 28 mile an hour, whatever the rev was.
Whatever the revs were.
She was always late for everything.
Yeah,
it hit a particular resonance, and it just hit the right spot. So, yeah.
Well, I gotta say, my boys like my Royal Enfield and how that vibrates. So, so I don't think it's gender bias when it comes to a vibrating bike.
No, indeed. Well, they all vibrate one way. I mean, at the end of that, Harleys tend to vibrate themselves to bits, so and fall apart underneath it. But yeah, it's all good. They're all good.
One of the questions I actually wanted to ask you is, what was it like riding in America versus riding in the UK? I bet probably a hell of a lot nicer.
Well, the roads are longer and straighter. That's actually depends on where you are. America is a big place, but no one in a car knows how to ride with a motorcycle. So if you're on a road, you're with other motorists. There's very few motorcycles, and most of the cars aren't looking for motorcycles. Like in Europe and the UK and rest of the world, everyone on the road kind of expects a motorcycle to be there. It's still kind of a recreational vehicle in the States. And so even people who commute on bikes every day, they're treated like some sort of anomaly. So in one respect, there aren't speed cameras and there's some pretty interesting back roads and stuff, but it is very much a niche kind of recreational sport, if you will. So I actually prefer the community and the riding in the UK better than I do in the United States.
Well, that's interesting.
I spent best part of a year in America back in 1988 when I was working there as a water ski instructor. And so that I had some transport to get bloody hell. What are you drinking there, Sean? Anyway, so hang on a minute, Sean. Let me just pass this up to you. Here, hold on. Ready? Yeah, I'll pass it
please.
up. Got it?
Thank you.
You got it?
Thank
right.
you.
Okay, jolly good. No, I was working as a water ski instructor in upstate New York in 1988. And so that I had some transport, I bought myself a little Yamaha Xs 400 custom. Nice little bike, actually. Quite a super little thing.
I have 3 of them.
Brilliant little bike to ride.
Yeah, they're amazing.
I had paid $500 for it. Rode it for the entire summer. One of the scariest things was riding into New York City on it, going in on the freeway with all the trucks and that, and you're going between lorries and things on this little bike, 2 up, trying not to get killed. And we got lost, and we ended up going into Harlem without knowing where the hell we were or how to get back. So that was quite an adventure. And
when you say upstate New York, are you talking Lake George or the Finger Lakes, or are you talking Orange County?
We were in a town called Wurtsboro, up in the Catskills.
Okay, that's not really upstate New York, Jeff.
They called it upstate New York.
It is to people in New York City.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but I know where you are. Yeah, Catskills had some good riding.
Yeah, it was some fantastic riding around there.
Great for an XS 400.
And it was a super little bike. Had quite a few little adventures on that throughout the summer. And at the end of the summer, when I'd finished my trip and was heading back to the UK, I just rode it to the airport, pulled up outside the front of the terminal, got off the bike, left the keys in it, and walked away. Yeah. So I just left it there. Somebody ended up with it. I have no idea where it went, but it was a super little bike. Yeah, great fun. Sean,
I sent you a couple pictures of an XS 400, and that's what Jeff is talking about now. So if you have one of those to queue up,
I'm gonna jump onto that in a sec.
Because it's funny, Jeff and I have owned the same bike.
Let me just.
Well, over the last 40 years of riding, I've had 35 different bikes.
Which bike were you referring to? Sorry, Dick.
The Yamaha XS 400.
Oh, there we go.
There's a couple of pictures. There's one with some baggage on from a tour through the Catskills, actually, Jeff. And then up into proper upstate New York. But that, yeah, that's
where's this photo then, Sean? Have you got it?
I don't know. He's keeping it to himself.
Yeah, I'm.
There you go.
That's the one. That's the one. Yeah, mine had slightly higher chopper style handlebars.
It comes with the goat horn. Yeah, the goat horn bars. Yeah.
Yeah, it had slightly higher handlebars on mine.
And you had the drum brakes front and back as well, or did it have discs on the front?
I can't remember. I think it had a disc on the front.
Yeah, probably. The customs would have had discs on the front.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it had a disc on the front. But yeah. It was a superb little bike, absolutely brilliant, and never went wrong. Yeah, it was a willing little machine.
Yeah, they were awesome. I mean, they still are. I owned 3. I still have 2 of them. One is a kind of a Frankenstein monster. This one is as close to stock as you can get it. And I just rode this summer on this. It hadn't run. I think I hadn't got it started in about 4 years. I just put fresh gas in it, and it just barreled around upstate New York, just back roads. It's a good little scrambler too. Like you can go on any type of roads, and you can actually get a pretty good clip on the highway. If you went from the Catskills down to Manhattan and into Harlem and the Bronx and stuff, you probably went down 87 or the Thruway for a little bit. That was it. And you had been perfectly fine on those long straight roads and gotten some good highway speeds on it. And for a little 40-year-old, or at the time I guess it would have been 25-year-old.
Wasn't that old? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This was 1988. This was so it was only.
I was probably about 8 years old. Probably.
It was only 6 or 7 years old then.
Well, I can't imagine how it performed then, because it performs great now.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, I was a lot lighter in those days as well, so it wouldn't have struggled as much carrying me then as it would now.
Yeah.
The power to weight ratio was a little bit different.
I've got no idea what any of you guys are talking about.
Power to weight ratio, Sean. Yes.
I've been riding it, yes. So I ain't got a clue.
You're probably the heaviest of us. Who is the heaviest?
Definitely,
me.
Dick. Dick, definitely, absolutely.
I'm the heaviest.
I'm only 400 pounds. I think Dick's about 450.
Right. Okay.
On a good day.
Fair enough.
Let's get a little. Let's go over to Peter from Straight Cut Motorcycles. Peter, tell us a little bit about your dream machine that you've been wanting to get into for a little while.
Well, I actually own my dream machine, which is my Triumph Thruxton. I picked it up the first week of March. It was a pre-reg, so I got a bit of money off it, which was good, but it was brand spanking. So I had to do bits and pieces. Only done, I think I went out on it yesterday, so I've done about 200 odd miles now. I had to go and do an essential journey to go and drop off.
Is that the 1200 version? Sorry,
yeah,
that is the 12.
Yeah, it's a Thruxton R 1200.
That's a sweet bike, very sweet bike. Yeah.
It's obviously, it looks like it's a classic. It's a modern classic, and it's got riding modes and everything on it. I have never ridden. I mean, I've only been riding for just over, a year and a bit. So like I said, I've had my Bandit and then the BMW, but nothing sticks to the road like that thing does. It's just unbelievable.
It's like a classic bike, only it's got brakes that work. And it doesn't try and kill you halfway around a corner.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
You throw that thing into a corner and it will just stick there. I mean, my chicken strips are quite small on it, but again, I'm still running it in, so I haven't pushed it.
They're not chicken strips; they're pussy strips.
Hey, my wife's watching this. Are those drop bars turned up, or how did you? I'm trying to look at the picture.
Yeah, no, they're standard, so they're not the drop bars; they're just the standard ones. So they're clip-ons.
The clip-ons.
They sit above.
They rise above the triple.
Yeah, they rise above it. Yeah. So you are leant forward a bit, but not massively. You don't get no pain on your wrist or anything like that.
Yeah, because as I say, going from a K bike to a drop bar Thruxton is probably a bit of a culture shock.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking for a second bike, and I wanted something to do classic shows and stuff like that. The gentleman ride that Sean did last year, again, because I had the K bike, that didn't fit into it, so I couldn't do it. I was only.
They would have let you in the Brooklands.
Yeah, hopefully.
It's the London folks that are snobby.
So that was the main reason I went for a bike like that. Now, I didn't think I could ride it because obviously I'm a big chap. I didn't think I'd be comfortable on it. I find that more comfortable than the K bike.
And there's rear sets or mid set? They look like rear sets.
The pegs.
Yeah, the pegs.
Yeah, you are in a sporty, quite a sporty position, but so I've tried to sit on my mate's R1 and stuff like that, and I physically can't get my leg up. I just get cramped straight down my leg as soon as I try and bend it up. With that, it's more
relaxed.
Yeah. It's. I didn't expect to be able to ride it. I went down to the dealership. They let me take one out, and within 10 minutes, I phoned the wife up and said I'm buying it. So she wasn't happy, but yeah.
You said you're buying it, or you said, can I buy it?
No, I said I'm buying
it. It's when she doesn't even know you've gone to the dealership and you arrive home on it.
With it, yeah.
Or she opens the garage and there it is. Oh, that's been there for ages.
Usually my wife's the one's buying me the bike, so I don't have to ask. So she just kind of...
I think I'm going to have to propose to your wife.
I don't know if it's legal in this country. We'll have to move.
Well, I wasn't suggesting that you stick around.
No, right.
He's an honorary Mormon.
I'm just waiting for the
or was that moron? I'm not sure which.
Yeah.
My son Chaz rides a T100 Bonneville, and that's an absolutely cracking little bike. Absolutely superb. I've had 3 Bonnevilles. I've had 2 Speedmasters. I've had a Triumph Trophy, the Trophy 1200. That was a beast. They're great bikes, Triumphs. Love them.
Yeah, I mean, I did a top 5 video over on my YouTube channel. So the top 5 things I love about it. And
there's something else you did as well, Pete. There was that little bit of a lag in the throttle that you fixed recently. So maybe you could talk about that just in case anybody does run into that problem.
That's caused a bit of a stir on social media. So you got what's called throttle slop. So on the Thruxton, it's got a fly-by-wire. So it's all done by a computer. And what I was finding at about 30 miles an hour in third gear, say, it was jerking. It just wouldn't sit comfortably. So there's a company called Ducati Spacers, which do these spacers. It takes that slop out. Now the throttle housing for some of the Triumphs and the Ducatis are identical. So you just fit these spacers in, and it takes the slop out. And when I took it out yesterday, like I said on my essential journey, it was just 30 miles an hour. It was smooth as silk. I didn't have any of the jerkiness that I had before, but like I said, it stirred up quite a debate online with people.
Why is that?
Well, people saying this.
Basically, you've now got a smoother wrist action. Is that what you're telling us?
That's it, yeah.
That's what happens when you've been in lockdown for a long time, I suppose.
Yeah, true. Yeah. So,
this is a family show, Mr. Jeff.
Why?
Just putting that out there.
But why would people decry your improving the performance of your bike? I don't understand why you're getting.
I think the people that have been answering on social media and all that are the older generation, say, that have been riding around or been riding for a long time and used to having cables and stuff like that. So the play is quite important, where the fly-by-wire, it doesn't matter. So I'm getting people saying, well, when you shut your throttle off, it doesn't shut completely off. Well, yes, it does, because it's all done via computers.
Yeah.
What I'm inputting at the throttle, the computer's determined and is doing what it needs to do. So it doesn't matter if it's got that bit of slop up there. So it's just things like that where, I mean, it's a healthy play.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like when you have bikes with cables, and if there's a lag in the cable, no one would give you any trouble with, tightening that up or adjusting that when you have that. So if you're able to do that in in a computerized system, that would seem like a benefit to me, as opposed to something where it's like, why are you messing with your throttle? I mean, we all messed with our throttles when we were riding. I mean, I still do when we're riding the cable throttles, and I actually prefer cable throttles.
Yeah, I do the BMW. And when I got the BMW, it had loads of slop on it, and I took that straight out.
Yeah.
So I'm used to riding with the BMW, which has no play. So obviously, when I Triumph, and I had, we're only talking a couple of mil play, but
yeah, exactly. But it's enough to. That's enough.
Yeah, it is enough to just to make the riding experience not that great. I've done that. Like I said, I took it out yesterday, and it's completely transformed the bike.
I have sorry to interrupt, Pete. I just had a question on one of the YouTube, our viewers on YouTube. It says, do you think the Triumph engineers designed play into the system to make it feel old-fashioned? As opposed, I mean, because you don't have to have play in an electronic system.
Nothing happens by accident. It was probably designed in.
It was designed.
The problem is that the actual throttle housing itself is not designed by Triumph. It's designed by an outside company that they buy. Because the Ducati, the Panigales, and all that have the same throttle housing, and that's where it all came about. So I mean, we're talking about sports bikes to a calf racer, and it's the same throttle housing. So I don't think that has. I think it's just simply how it's manufactured, and it's. I mean, I get there might have to be a bit of play there, but for me personally, I didn't like it. I've taken it out. I've resolved my issue. Only time will tell. Once we get out of the lockdown, I can take it out for longer trips, and then I might find that it doesn't work for me. But at the moment, what I experienced yesterday, I don't think we're going to have a problem.
How involved was the process of adding those spacers?
I've done a video on it. It's on my YouTube channel, how to fit it. It took me a grand total of about 5 minutes.
Okay.
It took me longer to film it than it would to fit the bike.
Yeah, exactly.
Ducatis have been one of my favourite bikes for years. And,
really?
I've loved them. I've had quite a few of them over the years. But there's a story behind a rather special one. I sent Sean the pictures of it, which was a 1995 750 Super Sport. And when I got this bike, probably would have been about 18 years ago now. Yeah, something like that. It was I think it was 4 or 5 years old when I got it. And my two sons, were William and Charlie, are about 13 months apart. They always used to argue and fight in the mornings. So to get them to behave, if they would behave themselves, I would take them to school on the Ducati.
All three of you?
No, take them one at a time. I'll take them to school on the bike. There you go. You want that's the bike there. There's that's my son William when he was about 11 in that picture. There's a photo of him where he's can't even reach the pedals. There we go, down at the bottom. So this was little William on the bike, and one morning I took him to school, and he said, "Go on, Dad, do a wheelie." And I wheelied the whole length of the school, and just missed the headmistress coming the other way. And I was a school governor at that school at the time. 2 days later, there was a governor's meeting, and I was officially told off with finger wagging and everything
in the minutes.
I was severely reprimanded for irresponsible behaviour, but it was quite fun. But the story behind that bike, we then went to in 2007. Both my boys and I went over to the Isle of Man for the TT. It was the 100th anniversary. And this bike is the same age as William. He was born in 1995. So there was a bit of a special affinity there. And if you go to some of the other pictures, Sean, that was us heading off to the TT and heading to go. And there should be another picture with my other son, Charlie, in the picture as well. No, not that one. That's me and William. There's a picture with my son Charlie there. Anyway, we went over to the TT. We did thousands of miles all round, and got round the circuit in 28 minutes. It's a 37-mile lap, in 28 minutes with 227 bends. And anyway, I was promised the bike to William for his 21st birthday. And of course, did lots and lots of lovely miles on that bike. Absolutely loved it. And then when he was about 17, we did a 3-year restoration on the bike. So we stripped it right down to the frame, as you saw in the pictures that Sean's now gone past. That's your hint to go back to them, Sean.
I'm glad it's a restoration, because I thought we were leading up to a punchline where I promised it to my son for his 21st birthday.
Yeah,
and then we saw it in pieces, and I'm thinking, oh, Lord, what has happened?
No, we completely restored it.
Okay, good.
And actually, when I first got it, it had a little idiosyncrasy that if you were riding it in the rain and you used the indicators, the headlamp would blow.
Italian.
Yeah, absolutely. And I took it back to the dealer, and he said, well, you can spend hundreds of pounds and loads of hours trying to sort it out, and it will keep doing it. He said, or you can use the Italian solution. I said, what's that? He said, well, when it's raining, use hand signals. And so that's what we ended up doing. But this was, we literally stripped it right down to the bare frame and rebuilt it from the bottom of the tires upwards. And there's a nice picture of it all fully restored, better than it came out of the factory. And then there's some other photos that I'd sent Sean, which that's the one there. So that was the finished article when it was all done. Absolutely immaculate. And then there's another photo which I sent you, which is William's 21st birthday, and he and I are going off for a ride. He's on the Ducati, I'm on a Triumph Speedmaster, and I'd waited 16 years to do that ride. That's it there. 16 years I'd waited to do that ride with him, and it was absolutely superb, absolutely beautiful ride we had. And he's still got the bike now. Unfortunately, about 9 months after he got it, he blew the engine up. So currently the bike is sitting in his conservatory while he's saving up to rebuild the engine, because the bank of Dad is now overdrawn. And
so at 21,
yeah, when
he turned 21, did you have was it still the same A2 A1 licensing? So the fact that it was a 750.
Well, at 21, he then had his full license. He got his full license.
So you can do your full license at 21. You don't need an. I thought it was 20. Maybe the age has gone up now. I thought it was 24 now that you need.
So what it is if you start riding when you're 16 in the UK, and you continue to ride, and you get your A1 when you turn 17, and then your A2 when you turn 19. When you turn 21, you get your full A license. However, if you're not riding, so someone comes in at 19 years old, they can do their A2, but they have to wait until they're 24 to do their full A license.
I get it. Okay, I get it. All right.
But he's been riding since he could reach the pedals. So
exactly. Yeah.
And so that was it. But that was it was one of these promises that you make that you got to keep. And of course, when he was 11, him being 21 was a hell of a long way away.
Yeah, a long way away.
And all of a sudden, 10 years fly by just like that.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that we all like about bikes is that we sort of create a big emotional attachment to the bikes, far more than just like you would to a car or something like that. I mean, not everyone's the same, but for me, there's a much deeper attachment that I form to bikes than I do to anything else, purely because of I don't think you could have probably, but you probably, if you're into bikes particularly, you're not going to have the same sort of emotional attachment to it. And I think that's for me when I look at a bike, that's my primary driver is to how I feel about the bike, that emotional attachment that either sort of forms immediately or doesn't. And I think it says a lot about a person's riding style and I think for me, there's a few things that's quite critical when it comes to selecting a bike. So my bike obviously is the Indian Chieftain, and it's the classic version. And I changed it to this bike because obviously of the sat nav, which the previous bike version didn't have. I think Jeff's Roadmaster is the same as my previous version, and because I didn't like messing around with the other external sat nav. But I think really what sort of creates that journey is that first of all, when you sit on it, you have that feeling of it either works for you or it doesn't, and then it's the places that it takes you. I think the thing is that I've been to some amazing places, and when you look back at it and you think about it, it just sort of it really hurts to be in a situation where you can't get back out on the road at the moment. And,
I think for sheer road presence, there is nothing like the Indian motorcycles. They've got a presence to them that is unmatched by anything. I know whenever I'm out on my Roadmaster, wherever I park it, people will always stop and look at it and admire it. And of course, the sound of that big Thunderstroke engine, people can hear you coming from miles away. And especially if you've got the stereo going.
On Mustang Sally.
I have got 1,800 different songs on that bike,
and only
all
play
you
one.
know about is Mustang Bloody Sally.
I've only heard Mustang Sally when I've ridden with you, Jeff.
Yeah,
on repeat.
So I think that's the thing. And I mean, if you look at these photos, it's not every day you get to go and see places like this. And I think that's for me is where my attachment comes from. I mean, my styles of ridden, and you'll see some from some of the other bits that are coming up in a bit, is that it's changed over the years for me. But I think pretty much what's happened is I've evolved into this nomad that just likes to sort of pardon the pun, and just sort of head out and go and explore. And that is the key thing for me. I mean, this picture is actually in Scotland near St. Mary's Loch, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. And like I was saying earlier when I was asking about riding in the States versus riding in the UK. Now, each territory is different, and there's certain things for me that is so special about Scotland that I just can't get it out of my system. It's just like when you go to one place and you just sort of feel, actually, you know what, I've arrived at home, and that's what I feel with Scotland. In fact, I think what I sort of tend to find is that the moment I hit the Lake District and I go up sort of Kirkstone Pass towards Edinburgh, that's when I sort of start to feel like, actually, I'm here now.
Wait,
and
you go to Edinburgh via Kirkstone Pass?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all about the journey, not the destination.
I was going to say, you're starting on the wrong side of the country. But I can understand why you do it, because Kirkstone Pass is a magical spot. What's funny is, awesome. It's funny is, you're showing us these pictures, you're saying going to Scotland, but there's something unique about going there on a bike. You could go there in a people carrier, and you could pull over the side of the road and snap a picture. But the getting there on a bike and being there on a bike, I think, is a lot different. Like, you could feel at home when you get to Scotland after you get off the the Caledonian Sleeper or whatever. But being there on a bike is something very, very unique. I just took a trip in November.
That was crazy.
To icy Scotland on a bike.
I think going anywhere on a bike is a better experience than going in a car or on a train or anything else. A lot of the time when you go somewhere, it's you go there as quickly as possible. You get on an aeroplane and go there, and it's about what you experience when you're there. But going on a bike, it's about the experience of getting there.
Yeah,
and that's the difference.
Well, it's funny. I agree with that, and and it's almost like when you get there, it's time. It takes you so well. It's what Sean was asking about the difference between riding in America and the UK.
Mm.
The distance, you could cover the distance between where I live in London and Scotland in the US in a day of riding. It takes you, unless you're Sean, it takes you more than a day to get to.
That's a half a day ride.
To get to Scotland, and and it's when you finally get there, it's almost like, okay, it's time to turn around and go back, but you don't feel bad because you're going back on your bike, because that journey it just keeps going. It's just a continuation.
It's funny. There's a lot of nostalgia with various different bikes.
There's frozen Scotland. My camera got frost on it. You can't hardly see.
I was following your trip, and I think I wasn't sure which one to get to, but particularly, when you guys were getting to the destination in the evening, it was proper frosty.
Yeah.
What bike was that on?
That was on a Triumph Street Cup, because that was us pulling in at Loch Lomond. That's 4:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, it's unique, isn't it?
Was an inch of ice on the road, and it was well below zero, and there were no hotel rooms for some reason. Everything was either closed for the season. Top right hand corner, you can see the frost, the snow covered mountain there. But
you can always tell when it's summer in Scotland because the rain is warmer.
Yeah, it was just frozen and dark. You think, you wake up at dawn and you think, I got, even though the days are short, I got 5 hours of riding in. There's no way. It's just you're going 40 miles an hour, so you're not slipping out on all the ice. You come into a valley. You might even have some really sticky, wet roads, and you can open it up a little bit, and you come around the next curve, and you're just in a frosted valley, and your rear wheel goes out from under it. It's insane how varied the temperature is, and
that's a bit dicey when you're on a bike that weighs 430 kilograms.
Well, I couldn't ride. I have a GS, but I couldn't ride the GS because my buddy came over from the States, and he was on the GS. So, and I didn't want to do 1,000 miles. I think we ended up doing about 2,000 miles. I didn't want to do 2,000 miles on my Royal Enfield, so I figured the Street Cup was there's some frosted.
You would know that you'd done the miles on the Enfield. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Check out the frozen dials on the bike when you guys were leaving.
That was nuts. Yeah, it never left. The frost was on the bike the whole day.
Yeah.
you kind of think, oh, it'll melt, but no, it didn't. Yeah, it was pretty nuts.
And any excuse to wear the wife's tights. That's what it is.
Exactly. Yeah, precisely. I got a question on one of the chats here. It says, you guys are talking about some of your favorite bikes. What are some of the worst bikes you've ridden?
I had a 1966 Russian Dnieper sidecar outfit, and it was great fun, provided you didn't want to go very far or very fast. So yeah, that was an interesting machine, but bloody awful to ride, but
was
great to look at.
Power-driven sidecar, or was it just
no,
rear wheel?
Just rear wheel. It did have a DP-28 machine gun on the sidecar, which was quite fun. But, no, it looked great, but awful to ride. So that was a terrible bike. But some of the when you look back on some of the bikes that we had back in the 80s, men of a certain age, we all sort of grew up in the 70s and 80s, and you look back at the bikes that we had then. And I had a 1976 Kawasaki Z900, one of the very first ones out, which was the first production bike to top 130 mile an hour. Well, let me tell you, if you did 130 mile an hour on this thing, you were either very brave or very stupid, or both, because they had the power of Battlestar Galactica and the handling of a supermarket trolley. They didn't stop. They didn't go around corners. Yeah, the frame was more flexible than your credit card. And you had skinny little tires on them as well. And if you remember the original Mad Max movie, they had all Kawasaki Z1000s on those
with high bars.
They blagged 15 bikes out of Kawasaki and then modified various ones of them.
Yeah.
But they didn't have the finance to transport them all, so the crew rode them down to where the location was. And after the film was done, a lot of these bikes disappeared. Funny that. You look back on some of the bikes we had. There was I think I sent you some pictures, Sean, of my Yamaha Rd 250.
Oh, the box top.
Yeah, the coffin tanked Rd 250. Now this was a bike. I wish I'd never sold this. This was a 1976 Yamaha Rd 250, and of course, in those days, when you were 17, you could have a 250cc motorcycle.
Those Yamaha 250s though, they went like gangbusters
on L plates, and they would do 100 mile an hour. And this bike was the reason why they changed the learner laws, because this was 100 mile an hour motorcycle that a learner could get on and ride. Yeah. That was the carburetors of it. And this was the bike, completely original. My friend bought this brand new in 1976, 8,500 miles it had when I bought it off him. It went into the garage in the late 80s and had a cover thrown over it, and it didn't come out until 6 years ago when I bought it.
And it kicked right over.
Change of fuel, and it ran like a dream.
Yeah.
But again, single disc on the front, and skinny little tires. And while it would do 100 mile an hour, again, you'd have to be really brave or really stupid. But I wish I'd never got rid of that bike. It was an absolute classic, and it really the definition of a classic. And of course, blokes in their 50s now, they were all 17 around the sort of 76, 77 mark. Hello? And it was the bike to have when you were 17 at that point.
I had a coffin tanked XS 77 XS 250, 200 or 250 XS 250. Yeah, maybe it was a 200. Same frame as the RD, same tank as the RD, but it had the kind of more upright twin, and that thing went. I mean, that thing was nuts. Yeah, and, single disc on the front. I think. Oh no, dual discs in 77. It had single disc on the front, disc brake on the rear.
Yeah,
and it was a proper cracker. But I trade on what for good or for bad. I traded it in for my classic 500 Royal Enfield. I don't have any regrets though, because I love my classic 500. But
if you've got no regrets, then it was a good trade.
If I had the room, I would have loved to keep it, but I didn't have the room at the time. But that was a great little bike, because that thing ran nearly as quick as the XS 400. I mean, they had an XS 200 or 250, XS 360, XS 400. So there was very little difference in the increments of the capacity of the engines. They had, and then they went up to a 700, and then they had an 850 triple. And it was like the RDs, where they were small displacement engines, but then they went up to like 12,000 RPM.
Oh yeah,
and it was tiny little engines.
Well, with two strokes, you've got no valve gear to be worrying about, because the reason you can't over rev a 4-stroke engine is you end up getting valve bounce. With a 2-stroke.
Oh wait, the RD was 2-stroke.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that was the difference between the XS and the RD then, because the XS was a 4-stroke.
Yeah, that's why 2-strokes will rev round to 12, 14, 18,000 revs. Another bike I had back in the 80s as well was
one of these.
No, it wasn't one of those I had.
Anyone have one of these?
That's what's that? A DT?
Yeah, DT50.
Ah,
my first bike.
That's your first bike? How old were you, Sean?
16.
Okay.
They were a super little thing. I had a Motor Guzzi 850 Le Mans, which I think Sean's got some pictures of there.
Yeah,
No,
let me
fish.
just get to them.
And the this was the 850 Le Mans, and absolutely classic bike from the mid 80s. But they had a very odd handling character. Have you ever ridden a Moto Guzzi?
Oh, yeah. But or later ones like the Grizzo and the V7s.
The early ones, they've got this great big monstrous flywheel that weighs about 9 kilograms. So there's a lot of inertia to this. And when you rev the thing up, the whole bike leans over to the right. And if you're going around a right-hand bend and you open the throttle and give it the beans, it lays the bike down a bit. If you're going around a left-hand bend and you give it the beans,
it tosses you high side.
it raises the bike up,
yeah.
Which makes for some very interesting handling. And once you get used to it, it's fine. But it was an absolutely beautiful bike. I mean, the gold pinstriping on the tank was hand painted on.
Yeah.
It was absolutely gorgeous, beautiful to look at, fast as you like, skinny little tires, and while it had really powerful brakes, there was very little grip to the tires. So you could lock up ever so easily if you weren't careful.
It looks a lot like your 750 Ducati. You have a type, it seems.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Italian red fairing, squared headlamp.
Yeah, well, my second wife looked a lot like my first wife, but that's a whole other story.
And they both look like the motorcycle.
Anyway, we're on wife number 3 now, but that's a whole other story. So we'll just park that one. But no, they were, and of course, the Moto Guzzi and the Ducatis shared a lot of very common parts as well. A lot of the electrics were the same. They used a lot of the same suppliers for the forks, for the brakes, etc., etc. So there were some very, very interesting bits to them. But this one, in a straight line, it went like a bat out of hell. It went like a scalded cat in a straight line. But again, interesting handling. Once the tires had warmed up, it was okay. But compared to modern bikes, a modern 750, totally different performance. And this is why a lot of guys who rode bikes when they were teenagers and then
disappointed with lower capacity bikes, yeah.
And then they come in, they go out and they buy a 750 or 1,000cc bike now, and of course the bikes now are so much faster and so much more dangerous that and they haven't got the bike exceeds their ability, and that's why a lot of guys are babs, aren't they? Born again bikers, and they're the biggest accident statistic out there.
Yeah, they do say that people who haven't ridden for a while and go back to it are very, very likely to, well, much more likely to get into an accident.
Yeah, because they think they know it all, and unlike those of us that do, they don't.
Let's go back to Pete. Dick will come to you next on your bikes. Pete, you've got a couple of other bikes I understand that you have a little bit of affinity for.
I do, yes.
There we go.
We'll start with the BMW R1600 GTL.
That is a beautiful looking machine.
It's basically an upgrade to my K bike. Obviously, the wife comes out with me quite a lot. That's what that's why I kept the BMW, because we go out on that. She wanted me to put some pegs and rear seats on the Triumph, but I said no. I'm not spoiling the looks. So the BMW is something that I would like to have in the future. However, it is bloody expensive. It's about 20 odd grand, and that's before you start putting extras onto it. So
you've clearly never looked at the Indian price list.
I have, and after I picked myself back up again. So, and then I got the Triumph Speed Triple. I've always liked them. It was a toss-up between that and a Thruxton when I was looking at bikes, and I went for the Thruxton. So it had to be on the list.
So why'd you go for the Thruxton over the Speed Triple?
Purely because of the old school looks, because of the calf racer looks, the way it looked, and what I wanted it for at the time, or what I want it for doing certain things that fit the bill better than that did. Plus, I reckon I'll end up killing myself on that. on that speed triple. They are a weapon.
Enjoy a bit of speed then.
Well, I have to keep up with you, don't I, Sean?
I'll tell you what. When I was looking to replace my bike last year, I tried out the new Ducati Diavel, and that was absolutely the most stupidly fast bike I have ever ridden. It was just monstrously fast, ridiculously fast, faster than I would never need it to be, and you'd scare yourself on one of those.
I want to go. Yeah, I want to go and try the Rocket 3. Actually, I might see
skip it. Well, you might like it if you like the big R1600, but I'd recommend trying the GT over the R, because the R beat the ever-living crap out of me when I rode it.
Yeah,
it's like what Jeff was saying about going great in a straight line. It goes great in a straight line.
Yeah.
You know, back in the early 2000s when Orange County Chopper was a big thing and everyone wanted these long raked bikes with 300 inch, not inch, but 300 fat wheels on the back.
Yeah.
I rode a couple of those choppers thinking, ooh, I want one of these. And even though they were soft tails, it just, that every little bit of gravel went right up to your back through those big fat wheels. And I got on that Rocket, and I was taking an hour ride. I took it out a half an hour and had to ride it a half hour back. And when it was time for me to turn around, I was thinking, oh, I just wish I was back, because it was such a horrible ride. But then I took the GT out, and it was like cuddling with a big bear. Just the raked bars and the forward controls, it completely changed the nature of the bike. Didn't abuse me nearly as much. What's that?
It was like a close encounter with Sean, was it?
It was like I was sitting in Sean's lap.
I was waiting for this to come.
Sitting in Sean's lap through the Kirkstone Pass. It was just like, he's like, sit back, relax, I'll take you for a ride.
I'll just sit back and have a drink. Cheers.
There we go.
Yeah, the Rocket is a what's funny is the Rocket R, I was going to do a couple of videos on them, and every time I took it for a video, there was some technical thing. I ran out of gas on one of the rides.
Yeah.
Then I deleted the footage. Then it was just the R did not want me to share my opinion of it, because, and then I took the GT out, and I was just having a grand old time. Footage is perfect. So I think there's a conspiracy there from Triumph, because they advertise the R, but they're going to sell more GTs.
Yeah. Well, tell me on that note, bikes you'd like to own, Dick.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt Pete.
Pete?
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Carry on. We can come back to that.
All days over.
But bikes I want to own.
Yeah.
How long we got?
Well, I own quite a few already, so I'm quite spoiled in that respect. But
I must be honest, I do agree with that. I've seen these emails, and I was like, "Can you send me over some of your favorite bikes?" And I got 1 email, 2 email, 3 email. He even sent me more photos than Jeff did.
The thing is if I find a bike that I think will be my favorite bike, I had the fortune of meeting Billy Joel once, and Billy Joel's a huge bike collector, and we were chit-chatting about motorcycles, and I told him that I had to sell a motorcycle because I wanted to get a new motorcycle, and he said, never sell a motorcycle. He's like, do whatever you have to do to keep the bike, because you'll never, even if you're trading it for a better bike or you think you're going to like that bike better, you're never going to be able to replace that bike. Even if you went back to the person you bought it from and said, here's some money, he's like, do your best not to sell a motorcycle. So I try and keep that. So when I buy now, I try and make sure that I'm going to buy a bike that I'm going to keep. But it might seem humble compared to the bikes that you guys want to own, but I really like. I want to own a a Himalayan, a Royal Enfield Himalayan. I really like the current SV650 by Suzuki. I think that would be good in the fleet.
I must be honest. I had a previous one of the older SV650s. I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. It's such a good bike.
I mean, the thing about Suzuki's, especially like I was telling you about how biking is kind of a niche sport or kind of recreational activity in the States. It's really hard to find a dealership. So like KTMs are sold in the same dealerships that you can buy a Stihl chainsaw in or a lawnmower. Suzuki's are sold. It's easier to find a four-wheeler or like a covered hunting off-road kind of four-wheeler than you can a motorcycle. So it's usually when you're buying your first bike in the States, it's whoever happens to have the closest dealership to you. And you kind of rock inside and you're like, oh, wow, look, a motorcycle dealership. And then you kind of buy a motorcycle because it's there. And so I've never ridden a Suzuki before I rode the SV650. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I rode the new Katana because I saw it at the NEC show and thought, I got to ride this Katana. And then afterwards, I rode the SV650 and I said, why don't I know about this bike? The price point is perfect. The performance is perfect. Other than the ugly kind of octopus thing going on of the exhaust under the frame, it's like the poor man's monster. And and I really like the SV650. So if I had, not so much that I would replace a bike that I currently own, and not so much that at the time I bought it, but if and when I have space, I would most likely pick up an SV650 and a Himalayan. And then another one of my favorite kind of bikes that I'd like to own is a 2018 mango orange CB500X, the Honda CB500X, because I think that is a very kind of perfectly designed bike. It's just so well done. And then they tried to improve it for 2019 and completely dropped the ball on it because they listened to everyone was like, oh, it's a little adventure bike. And even
it's like when they changed the Speedmaster from the original shape to the new shape. Yeah, they completely dropped the ball,
And so everyone was like, oh, it needs a 19-inch wheel and it needs a different display and it needs this and it needs that. And Honda's like, ooh, okay, we'll sell more. And they did all of that. And then you get on it and you're like, this is just a boring bike now. This is just an appliance bike. This is a commuter bike. This could be great in the courier fleet for Addison Lee or whatever. But it's not going to be that fun little secret that all the previous owners know it is when they get on it and like secretly. Because when you pull up to Ace or Loomis or the T-Hut or whatever on a CB500X, no one's oogling at the CB500X.
No.
But I'll guarantee you, the guy who's throwing the leg over the CB500X and riding the roads around those places and going home has a shit-eating grin on their face the whole way. And it's those bikes those little secret little bikes that I completely have love affairs with. And so, like, one of my favorite bikes is my 2005 Yamaha Fc6, because between 2004 and 2006, they got it perfect. And then in 2007, they're like, oh, we're going to bump up the horsepower and we're going to make it an 800 or 700 or something. And then the bike just disappears into obscurity until they redesign the engines for the whole MT line, the new XSR 700 and the XSR 900. And those bikes are closer to those phasers of the mid 2000s than any bike that's happened since. So when it comes to bikes that I really like to own, it's those kind of secret bikes that the owners know they have this kind of sweet spot bike, but it's never going to be on the cover of MCN. It's never going to be drooled over in the parking lots at the ride up. And those are those kind of sleepers. Those are the bikes that I really enjoy.
So sorry, Jeff. I have a bike that I'd like you guys to ask to guess what that would be that I would like to own.
We can get a guess.
Pooch Maxi moped.
A Honda Grom.
No.
That would be fun.
Obviously,
I'd like to see.
I'd like that to be a great video.
Obviously, you guys know that I'm an Indian guy.
It's the new Indian Challenger.
FTR. It's the FTR. You want an FTR?
No. And my obvious choice is the Challenger, and I want to speak about the Challenger, but that's not what I'm going to talk about now. It is this. The ZZR 1400.
Ah.
Now, I've had a few of these, and I had the 1200, and I've had 3 of the 1400s. And I tell you what, I absolutely love the ZZR 1400. Now, for various reasons. One, anything small, it looks like my backside is trying to swallow a bike. 2,
I nearly
speed.
Swallow's a nice way of saying that.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, what can we do? And it is a family show after all. And the speed on this thing is absolutely phenomenal. Now, I know it's not one of those throw around bikes like the ZX10, which I really do like. Obviously, it's much more of a sort of a track related bike, which I really do like that. But obviously, because of my size, I'm a bit limited in terms of the bike that I do ride. But for me, the ZZR 1400 is an absolutely amazing bike with so much capability. And that's the one thing. But the main reason why I stopped riding it and changed over to my other bike is because, being quite honest, I might be a little bit heavy on the speed. So I am a little bit worried. I am a little bit worried about
I've been riding with you, Sean. You're a lunatic.
It's also the difference, Sean, is between having your feet behind you or your feet ahead of you. Do you want to go in? Do you want to go into the gates of hell feet first or head first?
I think if you put it like that, it probably doesn't matter.
Sliding sideways with your arse on fire.
I don't know. I usually, when I go up on the high dive, I usually jump in feet first as opposed to taking the swan dive.
For me, honestly, it's such a bike. Jeff, sorry, man.
No, I was going to say over the years, 40 odd years of riding, every single bike I've had, as soon as I've got it, I was already looking forward to the next one. So when I had a 125, I was looking forward to a 250. When I had a 250, I was looking forward to a 500. When I had a 500, I was looking forward to a 750. But now, I think the Roadmaster for me is the ultimate bike, and I can't think of anything nicer. But if I was to have other bikes to go with it, I'd probably go for an FTR 1200 because I think that's just a whole lot of fun on 2 wheels. I'd also probably like a vintage, the Chieftain vintage style, because I think they just are very elegant. I don't need to be charging around with my hair on fire anymore. I'm older than that. But I think just some of these bikes, they're just beautiful. A bike I'd love to have would be a 1937 500cc Rudge Ulster, because my dad had one of those in 1937 when he was 21. And I think that would be a lovely bike to find. But yeah,
Jeff, I think it'd be safe to say, Jeff, that anyone would like that.
But they just don't come up. You just never see them around.
No.
At the end of the day, I think it doesn't matter what you're riding, as long as A, that you are riding, and B, you're enjoying it. And you look at the grid on. Oh, that was a Suzuki I had. That was me in 1983.
I can't believe that is the same guy. Can you believe that?
That is me in 1983. I was so fucking cool on that thing. And there was another bike I had, which was a Honda VF 500 F2. I think you got a picture of that too, Sean. And again, absolutely epic. You can tell it was the 80s. There's an XR3 behind me and an original Range Rover, which would have been new at the time. But that is so 1980s. And that was my VF 500. Now that was a little pocket rocket. That thing was. Absolute screamer.
Matching coat there, Jeff.
Yeah, quite right too. It's the it was the only time I've had matching jacket, but yeah, it was a superb little bike. Again, they never sold a lot of them. The 500 was quite rare.
Yeah,
they basically went straight onto the. Yeah, it was very good, and yeah, they went on to the most of them went on to the 750s and so on. But yeah, two absolute screamers. Sorry,
I'm rocking the mansion.
Play us a tune on the baby grand there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be back in a minute, guys.
He can play all the right notes, just not in all the right order.
Yeah.
I've hit the brick wall.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we're almost getting to the end of it, guys. But as per usual, I have to ask this question. We're now a month or so into this lockdown. So, Peter.
Yes.
What's your next trip? The moment they say that's it, you can go. The lockdown's finished. You can go wherever you want. What is the first thing you're going to do?
I'm just going to go out on the bike. Doesn't matter where. Obviously, like I said before, with my company and everything, I can't go away for weekends or go away for long periods of time. So it would just simply get the bike out and just ride and just see where it takes me. If it takes me down to Cornwall or towards Scotland or anything like that, then it is what it is.
What about you, Jeff?
I think I would head up to Scotland, do the NC 500, and then come back down through the Lake District. And
Mr. Dick Whistles?
Jeff stole my answer. going up to the Lake District.
We'll get together. How's that? I'll meet you there. We'll get it right together.
Now, so the first trip is going to be bringing my wife Fanny to a motorcycle dealership so she can buy her bike.
Has she not bought one yet?
No, we literally had the lockdown announced the day she was going to test ride the bike. I think she's going to buy. Then I'm not going to tell you yet. You got to watch my videos.
Well, then unveil.
She should try before she buys anything. And that's the Scout, the Indian Scout 60.
It's on the short. Well, she's looking at the 100th anniversary Scout that's on the short. So it's down to 3. She's looking at the Indian Scout 100th anniversary, which is the 1200 with 100 horsepower. She's looking at the Harley Davidson Street Bob, and the which is on the bottom end of the list. But she likes the styling, and
it should be on A list, but not any list that's a good one. Yeah,
and she likes the Triumph Bobber Black with mini apes.
Yeah,
so
I'll just bring up a little picture.
That is a lovely looking machine, the Bobber.
Yeah,
so that's what she's currently looking at.
She's looking at that. She likes that, but she hasn't been able to get on it. That's the Street Bob. Street Bob is disappointing. I like it. I actually rode it. I enjoyed it, but the problem is the bang for the buck isn't there. It's a very low-tech bike compared to the other 2 on the short list.
It's also got a peanut-sized petrol tank, so you'll have a range of about 60 miles.
Well, the Bob. That's the problem with the Bobber. The Bobber has a tiny tank as well. So the Bobber that she's looking at, we're going to put the Speedmaster tank on it, so she gets a longer range on it, and it covers that gap between the seat and the tank as well. But so the first trip, to answer your question, is going to be to a motorcycle dealership to buy Fanny a bike. And then from the dealership, we're going to break in the bike to the Lake District. We're going to go up the Hard Knot Pass and the Rhinos Pass. And then we're going to go up to the NC 500. That's the plan when all of this.
Well, out of that list of 3, head and shoulders above anything else would be the Scout for me.
So
if we can get on one, I'm sure it will be for her too. But the problem is there's 2 dealerships in 2 opposite directions from us, and neither.
Whereabouts in the country are you?
We're in London, so you got Crazy Horse on either side of the city, one in Oxford and one down southeast, and then you have More Speed down kind of Plymouth way, and the guys at More Speed have been really accommodating in terms of staying up and late for us and making accommodations for us. But we still haven't been able to get down there. It's kind of an hour and a half, 2 hours from us. But the guys at Crazy Horse, the fact that she's had a license for 15 years in the States, but only just got her full UK license, they're like, oh, we don't want to put her on a bike. We got to get special dispensation.
You're joking me.
You can go out with one of our salesmen, and it's like they don't want to sell us a bike. So it's really quite difficult.
You want to go down to Canterbury from London. You go down the A2, go to Canterbury, and go to Robinson's Foundry.
Okay.
Those guys are brilliant. I bought 3 bikes from there, and they could not be more accommodating or better. Robinson's Foundry, absolutely.
Check it out.
Canterbury, Robinson Foundry, and they've got Harleys there as well. They've got Motor Guzzies there.
Yeah.
They've got all sorts of stuff there.
I mean, the guys at More Speed, when they open up again, I think we're going to give them a chance. But the other problem is that if you're 2 hours from your dealership and you need even regular service, is that what you want to bite off and chew when you own a bike?
Yeah,
so
I mean, I can totally understand that.
So Indian is very attractive to her, but the threshold of ownership may be too high to step over. So we're wait, and having this time during the lockdown has given us a lot of time to discuss the pros and cons. But I have a feeling that once she gets on the Scout, she's going to like it because her bike in the States.
When you ride the Scout, especially the 66 cubic inch, which is the 1200, absolutely phenomenal piece of kit to ride. Below 6,000 revs, it's a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde bike because below 6,000 revs, very, very easy to ride, very straightforward, and so on. But above 6,000 revs, that's when you hit peak power and peak torque, and all hell breaks loose, and it tries to pull your arms out of the sockets. And that's when it gets really interesting. So it's a bike you can ride ever so simply and just have a little pootle around on a Sunday if that's what you want to do. And if you want to go drag racing with it, you can do that too. Very, very versatile machine and brilliant bit of kit.
Yeah.
So I had a Scout before I had the Roadmaster.
Yeah.
The only reason I upgraded was that I was going to do a lot more touring. And the Roadmaster is fantastic. The Scout is a great solo bike.
Yeah.
If you don't want to take a passenger and you don't want to carry a lot of luggage.
Yeah.
Whereas the Roadmaster is just the ultimate for getting.
Well, I think Fanny likes the bobber style more a little bit. A little bit with the ape style.
Yeah, she wants apes.
She likes it. Yeah, she likes it more.
Go check out Robinson's Foundry. Even just do it online. They've got some fantastic stuff down there.
Yeah,
they're very, very, very helpful. So
we live by the Ace, so we're on the opposite side of London than Canterbury. So it takes 3 hours to get across London to get an hour outside of London.
I appreciate the recommendation. I think the thing is that there's a lot of good dealers out there. And you just got to find the one that works for you, because at the end of the day, I've heard good things about a lot of them. I mean, there's probably a few that I would avoid if I had the choice. But even one of the guys watching, Matthew Norwell, I just want to give him a big shout out, Matthew, mates. I hope you're feeling better. I know you've had a bit of a hard time recently, but hope you come right soon. Anyway, Matt has actually bought his Challenger, but he's not been able to pick it up yet, which is I'm sure he's a bit gutted about. And there's a lot of good dealers out there. It's just like I say, and I think one of the things for me that I like, because I've got dealers closer to me than More Speed, is the fact that I actually get a good run down there. But it depends on what you like. If you like riding but you like a short hop, then obviously it needs to be different. And if you like a good long run, because I generally start, if I only do 100 miles a day or one way, I start sulking. I like to do a little bit more. But just to wrap it up now, guys, I just in terms of my trip, the first thing I'm going to do, as I mentioned maybe on the last one, is the moment they announce the lockdown is done, is I'm on the bike and I'm heading to Scotland. And if Dave Scott is watching, mates, once I've finished Scotland, I'm going to come back down. I'm going to meet up with you, and we're going to do that round the world trip, mate. So one of the guys that I met from the foundry, actually, Dave Scott, really good guy. We're going to meet up and have a discussion. And he came to me recently and put the idea in my head. So initially we started talking about riding from the UK to Australia, and I started looking at it and all the sort of different bits and pieces, and sort of just started playing on my mind. It's like, well, hang on a second, if you're going to go that far, why not go a little bit further? So we've now ended up with this.
Any further, you start coming back again.
Well, this is the thing. I'm trying to get as far away as possible before I get back again. And
can you fit knobby tires under those Indian fenders though?
Well, so this is the thing, right? So my original plan was to actually take an Indian FDR and adventurize it. So lift it up, put some different wheels on it. But I'm not sure if that's going to happen. And also, there's a rumor that Indian are going to be launching an adventure style bike. So what I would like to do is to be able to take one of those and do that, use that for the trip, and hopefully we'll be able to do it.
How many Indian dealerships are there in Peru?
Sponsor you.
So at this point in time, I'm going to have to go to the gym as well, because if the bike breaks down, I'm going to have to put it on my shoulder.
Right, yeah. I was going to say, I don't know how many Indian dealerships are in Peru. There's 2 in England.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. This is the thing. I mean, the way we're planning it, the way we're planning it is that we would probably be looking at a significant support effort to go along it. So we'll need to take parts and things with. I mean, like I say, I've spent days, not hours or minutes, looking at this, and it's gonna take a severe effort. But I think one of the things, and this is one of the reasons why. I gave a big shout out to Matt as well, is I want to basically bring awareness to people who live with challenges on a daily basis. When I say awareness, I want to be able to show people that when something bad happens to you, life doesn't end and you can do more, and you have the ability, not always, but to do that, to do that little bit more than you think, and I think sometimes we fall into the trap where you you listen to what people have to say. You can't do this, or you can't do that, and you can't do that. Well, I've been through so much in my life in different ways and different things, and the one thing that I've learned is do your thing, you do you, and if there's a mistake or something. I'd like to make that mistake myself. So I'm not saying about being reckless, but what I am saying is I just want to be able to show people that there can be life after things when you think it can't. It's difficult, and I think having listened to a lot of people, especially at during this lockdown, people battling with mental health, just in terms of with being able to not being able to go out and stay at home, and people are concerned about things, and I think. That's what brought the idea for the show is, to bring a bit of light-hearted entertainment, and also just be out there and show people that, look, there's different ways of doing things, and I'm hoping that we're going to be able to take this on the road and be able to bring some, I don't know, some hope. Yeah. So exactly.
It's all about hope. These things will affect you as much as you let them affect you.
Exactly.
And you can either sit there and go, ugh, or you can get off and do whatever it is that you need to do and you want to do. And I can completely understand why riding is so important to you, more so than your average bloke, because of all the things that you've gone through. And I get that totally. And do you know what? Nothing but respect for it. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Sean, also, you might get a bit more reception. People might be more receptive to what you've been trying to say prior to all of this, because it's more acute to the general public than it was before. Where
I think so.
You're trying to convey something that was unique to a small percentage of people, and you're trying to say, yes, bad things can happen to you, and when they do, there's alternatives to how you deal with it. And most people who, when bad things don't happen to them, they go, "Oh yeah, okay, what's this guy talking about?" But now that we've had the entire world affected by something, I would be hard pressed to think that you don't get a better reception to the message that you're giving out.
You're an
I hope
inspiration.
so.
You're an
Say
inspiration.
again?
You're an inspiration, fella.
Thank you, Jeff. I find it hard to take compliments sometimes. I think you know there's a few people who always tell me to smile a bit more. I always smile on the inside normally, but yeah, I appreciate that.
You're an inspiration, and keep doing what you're doing.
Well, look, I think that's the thing. I mean, even like again, I don't want to carry on too long about things. I appreciate it taking everyone's time, but you know that's why I started riding. And I mean, it's the same thing when I met Dick and Fanny and everyone else is out on the road. You know, I met you guys at the DGR, and you know, for me, so many amazing things has happened just being on the bike and just getting out there, and that's why. Again, you know, like I said, I've been riding a long time. I've loved bikes. I just want to be out there. But I found myself for long times where I actually didn't ride. And the main reason behind that is because, I'll wait for someone to come for a ride. Well, I'll wait for this person. And you'll end up not really enjoying it. And it's just like it lost the juice. And I just woke up the one day and I said to myself, you know what? I don't care if I've got someone to go with me. And I just got up, packed some stuff, and I went out, you know. And, you know, I found myself building up to it because obviously it's a little bit of a fitness thing as well, where initially I was battling to do sort of 200-300 miles in a day. And, you know, I've been in situations where I was doing 1,000+ miles a day and covering, you know, great distances. And it's not because I'm about riding fast. It's not about anything. It's actually, for me, riding is an expression of who I am. And, you know, so like sometimes I'll just chill and you know, just ride and just zone out. You know, I'll go for like a 12-15 hour day ride and I'll barely actually know where I've been because I just completely zone out. Or I'll be on the bike and I'll have a ride with Jeff or Pete or whoever, and I'll absolutely just wind the bike to within an inch of its life. Just and again, I think it's the same for everyone, and I'm hoping that you know, it's I don't know. That people can enjoy that, you know, and I think, you know, at the end of the day, I think for me, and that's what I started with Indian, and then now I think spreading that further out as well is just to get people riding. It doesn't matter what you're on or what you're trying to do. I just want to bring people together and get them riding because I know that there's a lot of people out there who are in that position where they're waiting for someone, or you can't go for a ride because, or you go for a 5-mile ride and you stick the bike in the garage, and you know that's just not life, you know. And if you're a biker, you know that's not for you, but you end up in that sort of trap because you know, because of your circumstances. And I just want to be in a situation where I go around the country now, and I'll drive to a couple of 100 miles to go and meet people to go and ride. You know, I've gone to Bury St Edmunds to go for a ride with someone. I'll go to York or wherever just to go and ride because I want people to enjoy what I enjoy, and I think if we can, you know, with what we're doing now with the state, if we can take that to people, I think that'll be brilliant.
A very good friend of mine, his father had a whole list of things he wanted to do when he retired, and he was waiting to do them. And this whole list of things, and his retirement was coming up, and as soon as he retired, he then fell ill and never got the chance to do all of the things that he always wanted to do and never did them. And so that's just such a crying waste of time. So it reinforces the fact that actually, do you know what? You get one life, live it to the maximum.
Plus, if you're trying to do it with insurance, once you retire, they're not going to insure you. So you got to do it when you're young. You got to do it when you're young anyway.
There's no point in being the richest guy in the cemetery, and nobody sits on the deathbed and says, "I wish I'd spent more time at work."
Yeah.
One of the nicest rides I had was a very short ride, but it was with my 5-year-old granddaughter, on the back of my bike, and she was loving it. Absolutely hilarious, brilliant fun, and it's a memory that she'll never forget. You know, riding with my sons, again, those are rides that I will never forget. The ride with Will on the Ducati, you know, 16 years I'd waited to do that ride, and it was epic. Riding with my son Charlie, again, I love it. When you go riding with your son, there is nothing like it. We all have riding buddies who we're fond of, and we're great friends, and every ride's good and so on. But when you go riding with your son, it's something special, and that is just perfect. And you know, I always wanted to go riding with my dad, but by the time I started riding, he was in his late 70s and physically not able to. So that's a regret that I wish I'd done more with my dad when he was able to, but some things just aren't to be.
Well, guys, thank you very much for that. Jeff, Dick, Peter, any last thoughts before we finish off?
I'd like to say it's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
thank you very much, guys.
Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thanks for taking the time to join us tonight. And for those of you who are still around watching us, thank you very much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Perhaps gone on a bit longer than we expected, but hope you enjoyed it. And any ideas that you guys want to see, send it through to us. We'll be back on Tuesday next week. And, you know, with some additional panel members. And also, if anyone in the audience wants to join us, send me a message, and we'll see if we can make that happen. Until next time, make sure you guys ride safe, and we'll see you soon.
It'll be fine. Riding the armchair.
Yeah.
And stay safe.
Yes.
Yeah, stay safe. Absolutely.
Right. When this lockdown lifts, then we can go ride our hearts out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
you, guys.
All right. Later.
Have a good evening. Cheerio. Bye-bye.